This is SYSPRO to discuss the impact of coronavirus on business sector and how technology can help. Doug, thanks very much indeed for joining us. Welcome to the program. What have you seen has been the immediate effects that have required some kind of mitigation with the advent of COVID-19?
Well, the first thing that happened was, of course, ships in China were stopped at the ports, factories were closed. Some of the industries, like the automotive industry, were almost closing down. And so we use a lot of supply from here because you might know that 20% of global trade's from China. So the first impact was people worried about deliveries from overseas and the effect on their production in this country. So that was the first one. And the second one, of course, was people start worrying about supply, and so they buy more. So on the one side of your supply chain, you're getting slower supply, and on the other demand end, you're getting more demand. And all that can happen is stuff starts to run out, as we've seen. So you need systems to help you work out, well, how much and where can you get more supply.
All right. So, traditionally you're starting to see, companies not holding stock for very long, and they just have these just-in-time systems to make sure that the cost of holding stock is minimal. That's been disrupted quite a bit. Is there any way that can be improved in this kind of environment that you've just described?
I think, in fact, everyone's having a strategic discussion about that. Some of these economic ways of doing business are really disrupted. So if you don't have spare stock, you will run out quicker. So then you've got to react. So it depends if you've got alternate suppliers lined up. And if you've not been using them, whether you'll get first priority when 10 other of their customers ask for it. So yes, and people are rethinking what they're going to do, and even more, they're rethinking where they're going to source from. Is China, Italy, wherever it might be, loads of companies in this country import stuff and then use it as input product, make it into something else and sell it. Some just import goods and then sell them again. So, yes, it's making people think, where do we supply from, and do we actually look at what products are more at risk than others and maybe keep more stock of those, so you more capital investment in the items that might be at risk rather than the ones that aren't. So local supply typically might not be at risk. So, you may not keep so much of that, but keep more of the overseas stuff. But no one expects a disruption as big as this one.
Right. And then technology is, how can we best use some technology to try and mitigate some of these risks? People are making mistakes as well. If the information to the actual employees isn't good enough, they're likely to cancel orders thinking that anything that comes from overseas is infected, which may not be the case if it is coming. So there's lots of, for people like we're talking on the web now, the internet's made a huge difference. The phones, mobile phones, you can get the message out. So people should know and be informed of what's going on. And then on the business side, how much do you buy? You have to look at an enterprise resource planning system so you can see how your stocks are being depleted, how long it takes your system will warn you that you need to reorder. That's the trick. You'll have to, if some products will actually reduce in demand because people will buy only certain items because they're spending more money on things they think will run out, like sanitizers and face masks, and other things will suffer, like now the alcohol, etc., will suffer because the pubs are closing earlier, and so the whole demand planning of your products is really quite tricky, and you need to do that with forecasting systems that then tell you what you need to make, what you need to distribute, and therefore what you need to order from suppliers. And that's really what systems do. It will certainly help mitigate the risk, but some items are still going to be very difficult to increase supply as much as people are really creating at the moment. So we really want to level supply and not have people moving stuff out of a warehouse into their cupboard. That's not helping anybody. I get a sense that, when a disruption like this comes, that business is never quite the same again after that, because sometimes in times of crisis, you find more efficient ways of doing things than before. Yeah, that's very true. I think China is very worried about that, which is why it's taking so many drastic actions. They're very worried about their trade. You know, Donald Trump wants to move stuff home. I think everyone's thinking about that now, bring industry back home. So that's definitely one result of this. And who do you deal with? You know, what, as I say, what are strategic products? And I think the other thing that's going to happen is pricing from overseas has often been cheaper than we can make locally, so we buy from overseas. And there are companies in this country with too much stock, but it was too expensive, so no one bought it. So maybe those people are going to get some opportunistic business because we've got no other place to go, and we'll buy from them. And that may change our buying habits altogether and after the virus is sorted.
All right. Doug Hunter, we're going to have to leave it there. Thanks very much indeed for joining us on the program and sharing your insights on how business can mitigate some of the issues that have been brought up, the disruptions that have been brought up by COVID-19. Doug Hunter is with the professional services company SYSPRO. He was talking to us via a technology called Microsoft Teams Meetings. All right, now the Reserve Bank has cut the repo rate, you would have heard yesterday, by 1%, and that's put extra money in the pockets of consumers. The central bank repo rate by 100 basis points in a move aimed at mitigating the economy against the effects of the COVID-19 coronavirus.